In this video, we are going to be making a admin panel for a restaurant. This is a very basic MVP that we will be building on in the future. Our goal is to build a foundation that we can work on top of. So with that, let's begin. Okay, so you can see we have all our items down here. We have our menu up here. We can choose a menu, whichever one we want. And we can also create our menu down here. So let's go ahead and first create a menu item. We are going to create chicken soup. Okay, now for the description, delicious chicken soup. And it looks like I misspelled delicious. Okay, this is going to be a lunch meal, and then this soup is going to cost $5.99 for a small. We can actually just go ahead and say small as well, and then we'll submit this. Okay, now we have a chicken soup on here. So you can see this is working. If I wanted to update an item, let's go ahead and update super cheese pizza. We're just going to change this to a supreme cheese pizza. And we're just going to go ahead and increase the price because inflation's bad. And we're going to say $30. I'm going to submit. And there we go, supreme cheese pizza. Looks like these are submitting just fine. And then the final bit, let's go ahead and show that we can look here at other menus. I can go to possibly another menu, and let's look at fall menu. Okay, nice. So let's go ahead and just go to the default. We'll just go to testing, which was the last one we entered. Actually, I take that back. Summer menu was the last one we entered. We just had to refresh the page. Okay, so now let's go ahead and create a new menu. This menu is going to be summer menu 2. And it's going to have a little bit of everything. And one thing I didn't get to, we'll save this for the next video, where we don't want duplicates to be entered. So if I hit submit, okay, look at that. Everything updates just fine. So this is our early demonstration of a admin panel for a restaurant's menu item creation and menu creation. So the first thing that we want to do is to set up our database, and we are using MySql. So we're just going to go ahead and kind of glide through this a little quickly. This is going to be menu demo live. Oops, there we are, live. All right, we're going to apply this, and we are going to create this schema. Nice. Finish. Okay, so now let's go ahead and just give it our quick permissions. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to select, I'm going to add an account, and then this user is going to be menu demo live. Authentication type, we'll leave that alone. This is going to be localhost, and the password is going to be a super secure secret password. Let's see, let's type that over, password, okay, apply. So now we have this. Let's go ahead and go into schema privileges. We'll add an entry. We're going to select menu demo live, okay. We are going to select all, give it just total freedom to do whatever it needs to. Okay, so now our user and privileges are set up. Nice. And that should be it for all we need to do to have our database set up. So now we can just put this into Spring Boot whenever we get that loaded up, and let's go ahead and get that started. All right, let's go ahead and set up our Spring Initializer here. We're going to make our new Spring backend. So we're going to be using Groovy, Gradle. We're going to be using Java. Going to stick with the Spring Boot. For our group ID, we're going to go ahead and call this org.backend artifact. We're going to go ahead and call it menu demo. And we're going to keep the packaging the same, Java the same, dependencies. We're going to add in a couple things here. We want Spring Boot DevTools. We want Lombok. We want Spring Web. Let's see, what else do we want? We want Spring JPA. Here we go. Cool. We want a MySql driver. All right. And the final thing that we need that I'm using is validation. So let's go ahead and generate and make our front end. So we need to create our front end. So let's go ahead and say npx create next app, hit enter. All right, so now it's asking what is your project named. This is going to be menu video front. Okay, we're going to use TypeScript. We're going to keep ESLint. We're going to keep Tailwind. We're not going to use the src directory. We will keep app router. I don't know this option yet, but I've always clicked no, so that's what we're going to do. And now we have our app building, so we will come back whenever this is finished. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do is to get our backend here up and running, which we have Gradle built, so everything is all set there. The first thing that I like to do in this, whenever setting up, is I usually like to get the backend running first. So here's where we're going to go ahead and get our application properties connected with our database. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and say spring.dataSource. All right, so let's go ahead and bring in the next piece here, which is going to be spring.jpa.database, which is equal to MySql. And then the next part is spring.jpa.show SQL. And this is going to be whenever we have Bootrun running, we'll be able to see what modifications are made to our tables in the database. We're going to leave this for true for now. And then next we will have Spring JPA. And then this is going to be for hibernate.ddl auto. And then here we're going to say update. Next one here, we're going to be doing the dialect. So spring.jpa properties hibernate dialect, which is equal to org hibernate dialect. And this is going to be my SQL dialect. Okay. All right, so our application properties should be configured properly. Let's go ahead and start making our classes, our controllers, and our repositories. Let's go ahead and start making the other things that we are going to need. Let's go ahead and drop down into Java, and then here we're going to, not Java class, we want to make a new repository or a new package. And this one is going to be for the controllers. And then we're going to make another one. This package is going to be for the models. And our final package is going to be for the repository. Okay, let's go ahead and make our controller class first. So we'll go ahead and say this one is going to be menu admin controller. All right, now that we have that built, okay. So here is where we are going to start annotating some stuff. Let's go ahead and say at controller. We're going to say at cross origin, and we're going to say at request mapping. What we want here is going to be value /admin, okay. Post mapping we're going to want to make is going to be add menu item. All right, so this is going to be public. We're going to have a response entity, and then I'm just going to go ahead and leave that as unknown for now. And here we're going to name this method add menu item. And this is going to take in a parameter. This is going to take in a request body. which we'll go over here momentarily. We're going to say, we'll just actually leave it as that for now. As a matter of fact, let's just go ahead and close this out of here. We just want we don't want the code to be upset. So let's go ahead and say new response entity. And we're just going to go ahead and type in HTTP status. Oops. Nope. We want HTTP status dot OK. All right. So we have our first post mapping set up. Let's go ahead and move over into our menu item entity. So we're going to go new Java class. And this one is going to be menu item entity. Okay. Now, first thing we got to do is we got to say this is an entity. All right. And then the first thing we want is we're going to make this private. We're going to have a long, and we're going to say ID. And we're going to go ahead and give this an annotation. We're going to give it an ID. We're going to give it a generated value. And strategy, we're going to give it a, let's see, generation type identity. All right. Next, we shall do private. Let's go ahead and give this one a string for name. We'll say private double, and we'll have price here. We'll do private. This one's going to be the string for the description of the item. All right, then this one will be private. This is another string for category. All right. Now we need to know if this item is going to be new, so we'll give this a Boolean of is new. All right. So let's go ahead and just generate our constructor. We're going to give this everything. Okay. And then we're going to generate our getters and setters. But we're just going to go ahead and get a setter or a getter for ID. So we'll just put that here. Then we'll say generate. We'll say getter. There we go. All right. And I believe this is everything we're going to need for our menu item entity, which this is going to be the first thing that we get running. Okay. So now let's go ahead and move over into our repository. Menu item. We'll just say menu item repository. And it's going to be an interface. Then this is going to extend a JPA repository with the type menu item entity with long as the ID. And I believe this is everything we need here. So let's go ahead and boot run our Gradle and make sure it is going to run. And if we have any issues, we will figure them out. All right, cool. So we do have an error. All right, so I'm going to be working on figuring this out, and I will let you know what the issue is here momentarily. So I think I figured out the issue. I had a misspelling up here. It should be BD or DB. There we go. Okay, so now if we were to try this again, we should have no issue. All right, so we're executing the boot run. Everything's loading up. And you can see here, Hibernate has created a new table. So let's go ahead and get our MySql up here. And we can see here we need to refresh. And we're going to go ahead and close these down. Okay, here we go. So now you can see we have a menu item entity table here. At the moment there is nothing inside it, but that is because we can now start sending data to the backend to have it store into the database. So I think our next step now is to get the front end up and running to where we can start posting this information into the back. So let's go ahead and start with that. Before we do mess with the front end, I realized something here. We do not want the long ID to be inside our constructor. that is going to be assigned whenever the item is set inside the database. So got that cleared up. Let's go ahead and jump to the front. Okay, so let's go ahead and stop boot run for now, and we are going to go ahead and bring in our front end here, which we might need to open the folder. Let's go ahead and do that. All right, so we need to open our folder for the front end. So we have Visual Studio Code up and running right now. We're going to go ahead and select this folder here, menu video front. Yes, I trust the authors because I did that. And here we go. Now we are all set up. Let's go ahead and get terminal going. And if we type ls, okay, cool, we have everything we need here. Now we can do npm run dev. So now we can start to see what our code, how it's going to be behaving. But first thing is first, let's go ahead and make a components folder because we're going to be needing that. App here, this one's going to have page, which this is the first one we're going to have to modify. And you're going to see if we open this up and then we head over to localhost 3000, we are compiled currently. Let's go ahead and, okay, now we can do a side by side. And first thing, we don't need any of this code. So we're just going to go ahead and get that out of here. And instead we're just going to say p hello. Control save. All right. And now let's go ahead and look into our CSS file here. None of this we're going to need, so we can go ahead and close all this out, save this. All right. So, okay. If you have not used NextJS before, they've really made routing very easy inside here. You might have also noticed we're going to be using Tailwind for our CSS. So first, let's go ahead and go into app. We're going to go into and make a new folder. And this folder here, we're going to say this one is going to be for the menu. And before we make the new folder inside there, we got to make a new file. This one is going to be page.tsx. Okay. And this is the convention whenever you're making a new route with Next.js is so app here, this is going to be home, which is currently where we're at. And now if I were to go to menu, which let's go ahead and define it here first. So here we're going to say export default function. And this one is going to be called menu. And here we'll go ahead and say return. And then we'll say p and say this is the menu page. Save that. So now this route should be working. If I were to go here and say /menu, which menu is going to be based off of the folder name, and we hit enter, this is the menu page. This is what we just wrote right here. Fantastic. So now we can do a nested route, and we're going to go to new folder, and then this one is going to be called admin. And admin is going to be a very similar thing, where now we're going to make a new file. We're going to say this one is page.tsx. Wonderful. Okay. Export default function. And this is menu admin. Okay. We're going to say return. And we'll say p. This is the admin page. All right. Save that. So since we have a nested route, we can't just say localhost 3000 /admin. We have to say menu because admin lives inside menu. So admin, and you can see this is the admin page. This is the admin page. If I go back, menu page. All right, we got that set up. Okay, so the one step I want to do here, and this is just kind of for my readability sake, I like to have the body background set up with a different background color. So if we say background color, and we're just going to say beige, because what I'm going to do is I like to use very neutral colors. So we're going to make this relatively light. Okay, we're going to save that. And you can see our background has a light gray to it. So we have that going. We're probably not going to be messing with the CSS anymore. This is any CSS we do from here on out would be with Tailwind. So, okay, let's go ahead and start making it to where we can have a form to fill out so we can make a post to the back end. Here we are, we have, we're down to our page, we have our menu admin, and we need to start making our form to be able to create an item. So I'm going to go ahead and put our form inside a component. So let's just go ahead and get this one just to kind of placehold for now. So this is going to be called menu admin. Okay. And then here we're going to make a new file. This one is going to be menu item form.tsx. All right. So here we're going to say export default function menu item form. Okay, and then we can just say return, and then we'll put form will live here. So we save this. Okay, and then we just have header here. We're going to be defining this in another video, but we just have it so that way the menu admin doesn't just get immediately compounded into the components. So, all right, we have our menu item form. Let's go ahead and go back here. And what we're going to do now is we're going to wrap our paragraph here in a div. So we got that, nice. And then let's go ahead and bring in our menu item form. And then we'll have a self-closing tag, save that. Okay. So now you can see we have called our menu item form in here, and the way it's showing up is it's underneath this paragraph, and you can see it there. Awesome. And we're going to go ahead and start working on the menu item form. And the first thing we want to do here is we want to change our paragraphs to divs because we're going to wrap our form inside of a div. So we can say form. And we're going to need to have a onSubmit handler, and we're going to name this function handle submit. All right. So just to kind of quiet down the thing for the moment, let's just go ahead and say const handle submit, which is going to equal, and it's going to be an event, but we'll define that here in a second. We can say event, and we'll just say any. All right, so we have our form set up. So now we can start working on what we're going to be doing. So here we're just going to say, we'll make this an H1. We'll make this create new item. And if we save this, let's see, it's going to yell at us. Oh, because this is not doing anything. Cool, well, we'll work on that here in a second. Let's just go ahead and define the bottom of this as well. We're going to say button type submit. We actually don't need to define this. It should still work the same, but we'll just call this submit. Save that. Okay. I want to try one thing real fast. Okay, so now that we have our form submit figured out, let's go ahead and start working on this. I want my button to be a little bit more readable, so I'm going to give it a class name, and we're going to say background. We're going to say this one submit, so this is going to be green, and then this is going to be 500, and then we're going to give it a transparency of 80. Save that. Okay, and then we can say P2. Ooh. P2, there we go, save that, there we go, now it's a little bit of space, and just because it looks better, we're going to say rounded medium, there we go, now it's actually a nice button, and then just to see that we're actually getting anything here, let's just go ahead and console.log button clicked. Save that. So now if I were to submit and I were to inspect, we can see that button was clicked. Good. All right, so let's go ahead and continue to work on our form here. This first one is going to be for the name. So the way that I'm going to write this is we're going to go ahead and wrap this in a div. Everything gets wrapped in a div. We'll say h1 name. Okay, and then the next part here is going to be for the input. And input is going to be type text. Okay, and then we're going to have auto complete off. And then we're going to have this with an ID of name. And let's go ahead and say this is going to be required with a minimum length of, we're going to say 3, and a maximum length of 40. All right, so we'll get a self-closing tag. We'll save that. So here we go. Yep, now we have our first input. Awesome. So now the next one that we want to start working on is going to be for description. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say div, and we're going to say h1. And I think that's all we have to do here. And the next part is going to be a little bit more exciting. Let's go ahead and make the category for our menu items. So this one is going to have h1 for category. Oop. And now we have to make a drop down. So before we get too far, let's go ahead and save this and make sure, yep, so description and name are both up. That's awesome. So now I'm going to go ahead and keep moving forward. This is going to be a select tag with a default value of default, which we'll define here in a second, with an ID of category. Okay. And then this one will close off because we need to have that second tag, and we'll just set it up like this. Here we'll start working on the options. If I can spell it, option. All right, this is going to be value default. And then this is going to be disabled because we don't want people to select this. We don't want to send this to the back end. So select meal type. So if we save that, okay, nice. We now have some options here. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and make a couple more options. It's going to have a value. And then this one is going to be for appetizer, but we're going to have appetizer, breakfast, lunch, dinner, dessert, and drinks. So we're going to need a total of 6. So if I copy this, 3, 4, 5, and 6. This first one is going to be for appetizer. Awesome. All right, so now if we save this, fantastic, we have everything we want there. All right, so now we need to start thinking about how we're going to set the price for the item. So we're going to do div h1. This one's going to be price. And this one's going to have an input with type, and then we're just going to say this is going to be text. Autocomplete, we're going to turn that off with an ID of price. Okay, good job. Now the next one here is going to be a Boolean, and we're going to make this one with an h1 of is it new. And then our input here is going to be type checkbox with an ID of is new. All right, so now we have those all set up. We have our submit, which is this button right here. And I think, here we go. Yep, looks like everything is all set up just fine here. So now let's go ahead and start taking a look at how we're going to manage handle submit here. So before we start to work on our handle submit, there's one thing I want to do quick, and this is going to help for readability here in the near future. We're going to give our div, which is holding our form, some CSS properties. We're going to say flex, and we're going to say justify center. And this is going to center our item here. And the reason we're going to do that is going to become clear here very soon. But for the time being, let's go ahead and now start working on defining our handle submit. So with handle submit, we have our event, which is going to be whatever we enter inside here. So first I want to set up a web URL quick link to kind of define what the first part of what we're going to be talking to in regards with our API. HTTP localhost 8080. Okay, so that's set up. Cool, because we are going to be communicating with our API now here in a moment. So let's go ahead and get rid of this button clicked. And let's go ahead and start setting up our data here. So const data, which this is what we're going to be sending to the back, because what we're defining inside here is the object we're going to be sending to the back, which is all of our inputs that have been filled in. So first, the format that we're going to do this in is going to be name, which is going to be a string. And this is going to be event.target.name.value. Okay. Oops. We want to have a comma here. Next part is going to be description. So now let's go ahead and make sure that this is being handled properly. So I'm just going to say console.log data. So we want to make sure that our object is being printed properly. So now that we've got that checked out, let's take a quick look here in the console. We got nothing going on. Let's clear this out. And we're going to create an item. We're going to say this item is pizza, delicious pizza. This is dinner, and the price is going to be $20.99. And this is a new item. So if I hit submit, this should, all these parameters should be occupying this space, which we're going to see here. And it worked exactly. Awesome. So you can see we have our category description is new name and price. So our object is being set properly. That's fantastic. All right. So the next part here is we have to send this to the backend. So now we have to go ahead and make a fetch post call. And we're going to write that like so. First, what we're going to do is we're going to turn this into an asynchronous function. So what we're going to do now that we have that as async, we're going to say await fetch, and then now we are going to say web URL, and we have to communicate with the correct API. And the way we had that written is if we go ahead and pull this out here, we can see if we look inside our controller, our API route should be localhost 8080/admin/add menu item. So we're going to go ahead and try that. We're going to say /admin/add menu item. All right. Okay, so now we have our fetch defined. And now let's go ahead and start working on the headers, which this is just going to help us prevent CORS errors. This is going to be method post headers. Oops. We want headers, and this is going to be an object. And this is going to be content type application slash JSON. All right. Now let's go ahead and make the body, which is going to be JSON.stringify. And here is where we're going to populate it with our data. Excellent. All right. So we are now making our post to the backend. And the next thing we want to do is we want to get the response. So here's where I'm going to say .then. And then we're going to have the response coming from the back. And this is going to be response.json. Okay. And then we want to see our data. So let's make sure our data came back properly. Now here's what we're going to do. We're just going to start off with console.log data, just to see that whenever we do send it, it's going to show up down here. All right. So currently, if we were to try this, we're going to get nothing back, and we're going to get some errors thrown into the boot run for Spring Boot. So the way that we are going to handle this is we're going to go ahead and bring out Spring Boot, and we are going to work on our Java method here. All right, so the first thing we have to do now is we have to create a data transfer object. So let's go ahead and make a new package, and this is going to be for the data transfer object DTO. And we're going to make a new Java class. And this one here is going to be menu item DTO. And now we save that. And we can open this up here, and I'm just going to go ahead and copy paste. We don't need to get the ID quite yet. So inside here, all right. And then the next step we're going to do is, this is where we're going to use a little bit of Lombok. We're going to say all args constructor. We're going to say at getter. And this should be all we need for this class here. Back here in our controller, the next step that we're going to do is we need to extract from the body of the post. We need to extract that and handle that data. So let's go ahead and say at request body. And then now we're going to use a menu item DTO. All right, so now the data we're getting back, we saw what that this looks like here. And it's, I remember I told you it wasn't going to work. Right now it's just because we're not able to receive that JSON. So we're not going to be able to see it at this exact moment in time, but let's go ahead and keep going forward here, because what we can do is, just to make sure that the information is being sent or being returned to us, we can write it this way. And then now we just need to restart our backend here. So while this is restarting, I'm going to go ahead and move this to the side. And now what we should be seeing whenever I hit submit again, I'm going to refresh the page and we'll type this all in. What happens whenever I hit submit again, what should happen is our console log data should be showing us exactly what we put in after it's been sent from the front to the back, back to the front. That's all we're doing. So we're going to say pizza. This is a different pizza. And this one's for lunch. And this one's cheaper. This one's $13.99, but it's not new. So if I hit submit, that error didn't show up this time. And if we inspect the page, now we have an object that came back from the back end. And this is what it looks like. So what it looks like is our post request is working, and now we can send our data to the back. So this is great. The next step now is we are going to save this object to our repository and be able to access it again in the future. So let's go ahead and bring back our controller here, and let's go ahead and save this. So the first thing that needs to happen is now we know that menu item DTO is being set properly. So let's go ahead and create a new menu item entity. And this one is going to be new item. So we're going to say equals new menu item entity. And the first parameter it wants is a name. So I can say menu item DTO.getName, menu item DTO.getPrice, menu item DTO get description, menu item DTO category, and Boolean is new. Cool. So now our menu item entity new item should be set properly. And what we're going to do now is we are going to save it. Oh, first actually we need to bring in our repository. So here is where we auto wired. And then this is what we're going to do. We're going to bring in our private menu item repository, and we'll just call it the exact same name. All right, so now we have access inside our controller to access our menu item repository. So that means here what we can do now is we can just say menu item repository dot save, and we can save our new item. And just to make sure that everything is coming back, if we were to save multiple items, what I can do here is I can say menu item repository dot find all. And what find all is going to do is it's going to create an array, and it's just going to send back an array of all of our items that we have saved in the menu item repository. So let's go ahead and see if that is the case. Let's restart our boot run here, which once this boots up, then we can go ahead and come back here to our application, and I'm going to go ahead and just hit submit again. I don't need to refresh the page here, and we should be now communicating with our updated backend here. So if I hit submit, look at that, we have an array. So this is fantastic, and our first item in the array is exactly what we see up here. So let's go ahead and save something different and see if we get 2 items back. So if we have hamburger, a delicious hamburger, and we're going to go ahead and change the price here to $9.99, and this is a new item. So if I hit submit, now we should have 2. But looks like something happened here. Looks like we got an internal error. And the way that we can read what happened is we can pull this out, and you can see inside Bootrun now we have a whole bunch of issues that have popped up inside here. So if we go to the top, it's telling us there is no default constructor for entity. So we're going to go ahead and figure out what's going on here, and we will come back and talk about it. So I think we figured out the issue here. If we bring back our backend here, all I did is I just added on a new Lombok thing here that just says no args constructor. Another way we can write that is we can just go under here and right click, and then we can generate our constructor, and then we'll just have a no args constructor. This will solve the issue the same way. And what apparently has happened is even though we were getting errors returned to us, what was happening is in the back end, if we refresh our MySql here and we take a look at our tables, let's look at the correct one, open up tables, and then we take a look here. You can see now we have 3 hamburger items. So this is going to be something we're going to have to fix and delete a couple of these because we don't want duplicates. But one thing at a time, and we are saving to the back end, which is great. So let's go ahead and move these aside, and let's try saving another item and seeing if it is going to work and not return any more post issues like it had before. This time we're going to make a cheesecake. And yummy. And this thing is going to be dessert, and it's going to remain the same price. So I hit submit. So now we have 5. And if we were to change this again, and we said wings, and we said delicious wings, and this is an appetizer, but this one costs $6.99, and this one's not new. If I hit submit, now we're getting the expected response from the back end. So this is fantastic. We are saving our items to the back. The next step that we are going to work on is displaying our array with a by using a get call to get the item list brought up to the front, and then giving us an option to modify or to delete an item in the array. All right, so if our objective is to display the menu items inside of our array, I think maybe one of the first things we should do is a little bit of organization. And if we look at our page file here, I think we can break it up to where we are going to display the menu, the active menu on top, the menu edit options on a second row, and then the third row is going to be the row that is going to display all of the menu items that are available to us whenever we want to create a new menu. So let's go ahead and just kind of mark that out inside of our page. We'll say div here. And this one here is going to be our, let's call this display the active menu. Okay, we'll save that. Okay, we have that there. And then the one below it, this is going to be where we're going to go ahead and continue to make everything divs inside divs. You can never have enough divs. Right here, and then below it we're going to say /p, and then we'll do p. Then this one here is going to be add menu items to new menu create, and then this one here is going to be display items being added to the menu. Okay, if we save this, okay. And then let's go ahead and just kind of space this out so it's a little bit more readable, because if I'm not careful, this is going to get confusing. All right, let's go ahead and make this another div. This one's going to be the one that we're going to start working on. And this one here will be display all items. We'll save that. All right. Cool. And if we do this real quick, we say class name, then we say flex. Here we go. Now this is going to kind of break this up into a couple columns, and we'll clean this up here in a moment. But for now, let's just leave it. Let's go ahead and get rid of flex for now, and we'll go over that here in a little bit. Let's just go ahead and focus on producing and showing all of our display all items here. Let's go ahead and make a new component, and this one here is going to be called, this one will be called menu item edit display.tsx. If you hate my naming conventions, that's okay. Export default function menu item edit display. All right, we're going to say return. Let's go ahead and throw a fragment in here for now. Save this, okay. And then we'll just go ahead and give this a paragraph, and we'll say, let's go ahead and go back to page. Let's see, we'll copy this. And then here what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and throw it here. Save this. And then here we're going to go ahead and call menu item edit display self-closing tag. Save that. And here it looks like we are loading up just fine. Let's make sure, check. Yep. All right, so our component is working. So now we can work almost exclusively in this component. All right, so now we can display all items checked, but the thing that we need here is we need to actually have the data to work with. How I plan to collect this information is I'm going to go ahead and make a get call here from our page, and I'm going to pass in the item array into our menu item edit display component. All right, so the first thing I'm going to need to do is going to be inside here, inside my page. And what I want to do is first say use client, because we're going to be changing state and using use effect from React. So now we have to say import use state and use effect from, this is going to be from React. Okay. So if we're going to be making a get call, I want to set it up to where my base URL is easy access. So we're going to say web URL. And then this is going to be casted as a string. And this is going to be HTTP localhost 8080. Okay. And then now we need to make, we need to set up some state here. So let's go ahead and we're going to make a new set state. And this one is going to be for the menu items that we are going to be receiving from our get call. And we're going to say menu item, set menu items. And this will be use state. And we shall initialize it as an empty array. Let's just go ahead and create an interface here real quick. And this is going to be for the menu item. We're going to make that, we're going to create this interface so that way we can have all these fun identifiers pop up. So the ID is going to be a number. The name is going to be a string. And new will be a boolean. So now whenever I'm calling my use state to get an empty array, I know for a fact I'm going to be sending menu items back up to the front. So let's go ahead and cast this as menu item array, close that out. All right. Okay, let's go ahead and make the get call happen. So now we're going to use effect, and we shall say function and then right now for the moment we're not going to be observing anything, so we can just kind of close that off. We'll say const get menu items, which is an asynchronous function. Oh, look at that. All right. And let's quickly check our backend here to make sure that we are able to make a call to the back. So we don't have our get call set up yet in the back. So let's go ahead and do that real fast. Bringing this up. Okay. And this get call is going to be really easy. So we'll do this below our post mapping. And we'll say get mapping. And we're going to give this a route of get menu items. Let's say public response entity. This is going to be called get menu item objects. And this one here is really just straightforward. All we're going to do is we're going to return a new response entity, And this one's just going to be from our menu item repository dot find all. And we're going to give this an HTTP status of OK. All right. So we'll go ahead and restart this, and let's make sure that this is actually working. Let's go ahead and bounce back over to the front. All right, so now let's go ahead and get back to work on our get menu items function here real quick. We're going to say await fetch, and we'll use web URL. And then we're going to say admin / get menu items. Then we'll have a dot then. This is going to be our response. This is going to be response.json. And then we want to handle the data. And then here we can just, let's make sure that it's actually working. So console.log data. All right. So if we save this, now we should find out, oh, actually first, can't really do much if we don't call it. So we're going to say get menu items. All right. So whenever the page loads, okay, let's see what we have. And here it is. We have our array and we have all of our items. So awesome. Let's go ahead and now set menu items. And let's just go ahead and do this real fast. If we're setting this here, then what we want to do is we will call this menu items, which is going to equal menu items. Okay, and now we need to go to our menu edit item display. We need to say props any, save this. Okay, that quieted down our menu item that was screaming over here. And now let's go ahead and try this. All right, so let's see what's going on here. So first thing I could do is probably put in the right thing, but we're still going to get an error. And let's go ahead and actually set this up properly. So if we actually look at the error, perhaps we should actually just try setting this up as a map. So let's go ahead and try that. I'm going to go ahead and set it up this way. We're going to go ahead and say const all items, which is equal to props menu items dot map, and we'll say item, say any for now. We'll get the proper cast type in here in a moment. All right, and then we'll set this up like so. We're just going to say return. We're going to say p, and then we'll say item.name. Then let's just throw this down here. Say all items. Save this. Oh, I guess it would probably help if we did it that way. Here we go. All right, so it looks like this is working. So now we need to actually start getting the format to look a little clean for our screen over here. I think another thing we need to worry about here is the key. Say item.id. All right, but let's see. Let's go ahead and let's set this up as its own component, because I want to set this up as a series of cards over here on the right side with their own options in them. So if we're going to set this up as its own special tag, how we're going to do that is we're going to make a new file. This one is going to be menu item card. Okay, and then we will say export default function menu item card. This one will also have some props coming in. And this is going to return, for the moment, some fragments. We'll get these cleaned up here in a moment. Let's go ahead and save this. And if we go back into here, let's go ahead and change this P to a menu item card. Do that. Okay, we have our key. And this one is going to we're going to go ahead and pass in the whole item. So we're going to say item is equal to, not just the name. All right. And I think for now, this is all we need to pass into our menu item card. So let's go ahead and now head back over here. If our menu item card is going to be rendering, then we need to give it something to look like. Let's go ahead and turn these into divs. And then here, let's go ahead and say this is the ID. Props.item.id. Then let's just make sure it's working. Okay, cool. Yep. So now we can actually go ahead and define the rest. Well, I'll go ahead and probably skip this so that way you get the idea of what we're going to be typing here. Okay, so now if I hit save here, would you look at that? So here we are, we have, we can see everything here. Let's go ahead and set this up as a ternary real quick. If it's true, it's going to say true, else false. There we go. We can now see the status of the various items. Now let's go ahead and make the card look like a card. This is where we're going to do some light styling here. We're going to say class name, border 2. We're going to give it some padding. I'm going to give it 2 and a margin of 2, so that way they can kind of breathe a little bit. Okay, you can't really see the border from here, but it's going to be there and it'll become more visible here in a moment. All right, so there's some light styling that's been done. Let's go ahead and go back to menu item here, and we're going to change this here to a div. And this is going to make sense here in a second because now we want to kind of set this up to be a little more organized. We're going to call this a grid, and let's see, we'll say, I think we're in a medium size right now, so we're going to say grid column 3. Let's see what if that changes it. No, okay, so we're going to say small. No, we're just going to say grid col. Okay, got that. Let's go ahead and remove these. We don't need this anymore. There we go. Now it's working properly. So now if we kind of open the screen up a little bit more, now we can see them in this format. Let's go ahead and make a large as well, and then we'll say grid calls. Let's say 5 and see what that looks like. If we open this up a little bit more. I'll probably help if I'd save it, right? There we go. Nice. All right. So now this is kind of set up a little bit more to where it's a little bit more readable. Let's change the background on these cards so that way it's also a little bit easier to kind of read what's going on. We'll say background color. Background, this is going to be, we'll say gray 200 and see what that looks like. It's still pretty dark. We'll go 100. There we go. All right, so that's a little bit better. Cool. So now we can see that we have our various items. And what happens if we go to create a new one? Let's go ahead and make a breakfast plate. Breakfast with eggs and potatoes. This is breakfast, and then this meal costs, let's go diner price. We'll say $6.99. This one's not new. If we hit submit, now if we hit submit, it's going to be added, and if I hit refresh, now we can see it. But I would like it set up to where if I hit submit, it's going to reflect immediately. So we need to change the state after we create an item. So let's go ahead and start working on that. The way that we're going to do that is we are going to pass down set menu items into our menu item form. So here we'll say set menu items, which is going to be equal to set menu items. All right, so that's being passed down. And if we save here, it's going to give us an error, but that's okay. Menu item form. All I have to do here is just say props, and we'll say any just to, we're going to come back and address all these any's that we're leaving all over the place. But for now, we just pass this into here. So what we can do is I can now say props.set menu items. And that should be the correct name, set menu items. If I double check here, set menu items, yep, that should be fine. So now anytime we make a post here, it should update right up here on our menu items itself. And I don't think we're gonna need to listen for that, but let's find out. So now if we refresh the page, let's make a cheeseburger, classic cheeseburger. This will be lunch. This is going to be a nice high-end one. We're going to make this expensive, $12.99. It's not new. So if I hit submit, yep, there it goes. The state was updated immediately, and fantastic. So now that we can see any item that we create immediately, the next thing I would like to do is after I submit a new item is I would like this to be cleared out, and I would also like to have a delete button in case there is an item I don't want on the menu anymore. So to take care of this, the first thing I'm going to do, let's add a delete button. And we're going to do that by going to the menu item card. And we're going to go ahead and write it right underneath here. We're going to say button. We're going to say delete. If I save that, now we can see it, but it doesn't look too much like a button yet. So let's go ahead and give it a bit of styling. We're going to say background red. We'll say 500. And let's give it a transparency of 80. It's going to have a padding of 2. And let's go ahead and make it, let's make it look a little nice. We're going to say rounded medium. And I also actually wanted to do that with these as well. So we're going to say rounded medium here with the cards too. If I hit save, okay, now these actually look like a delete button. Awesome. I'm also going to go ahead and give this a margin top of 2. There we go. All right. So now that we got that set up, the next thing I want to do is we got our button. Let's go ahead and if we give it an on click, we need to have the function ready to go to actually make the post call to the back. But before we do that, let's go ahead and clear this out real quick. So I want to set this form, and I'm going to do it like so. What we're going to do is we're just going to say event.target.name.value is now equal to empty. And all I'm going to do here is just copy, save that. So if we were to make another item here, it should clear out. So let's go ahead, let's make a duplicate cheeseburger that we're going to delete here in a moment. And if I hit submit, there we go, cool. So the cheeseburger was created and our form cleared itself out. So that's fantastic. Let's go ahead and make our delete function. And we're going to do that inside our menu item, not inside menu item form. We want to go to edit display, and we'll go ahead and set this up in here. This is just going to be a call, but the delete call is going to be updating the menu. So we are going to be needing to set the state again. So let's go ahead and menu item edit display. If we go back to page, menu item edit display, we're also going to go ahead and pass in our set menu items. So if we copy this, all right, now we have access to it inside of our menu item edit display. Save here, menu item edit display. Let's go ahead and set up the back end, because we have the front, but if I'm going to make a call to the back end, I want the API ready to receive it. I'm going to go ahead and bring over, and for my remove item posting, we're going to go ahead and write it like so. I'm going to do this underneath our get mapping. I'm going to say at delete mapping, and we're going to name this route remove item, and this is going to be based off of the item ID. So we'll say public response entity remove menu item. All right, so now the next step here is I'm going to say at path variable, and this is going to be a long. We're going to say this is an ID, and inside here what we're going to be doing is we're going to be returning at the end a new response entity, and this one's going to be returning the menu item repository dot find all again, http status.ok. And the reason it's going to be sending back the whole menu item repository is because we still need to see that entire list that is here that we're printing our cards on. So we're just pretty much following what we've done with our post and our get calls is here. So now let's go ahead and make sure that the ID is being sent to the back and we are actually able to locate the item. So the way I'm going to write this is we're going to say optional, because we don't know if the item exists or not. So menu item entity, and then we're just going to say remove item. This is going to equal menu item repository dot find by ID, and it's going to be based on the ID that's being passed in. Let's go ahead and import in this optional. And if this is true, we'll say if remove item dot is present, then we'll say sout item is present. Okay. Now we're still going to be getting an updated menu here. So whenever we first go to test this API, we won't be seeing anything happen here on the front. Instead, we're going to see it showing up down here inside the boot run. And now that that's set up, let's go ahead and restart our backend here. And let's go ahead and build the call that we're going to be making in the front, which this one's going to be very simple, straightforward. All we're going to do here is I'll just be making a new function. This one's going to be called remove item, and this is going to equal an item ID. This is going to be number, and this part here, this will be a fetch, and this is going to be based on, oh, we don't have our web URL up here yet. So const web URL. So we have this set up now. Let's go ahead and continue with our fetch here. So we're going to say web URL, and this is going to be plus. This is going to be /admin /remove item. And then this is the part where we have to add in the item ID. Okay. And now for our header, all we're going to say is delete. Cool. All right, now we'll just say then. We'll say response, which is going to be response.json then data is going to equal, and let's just make sure that we are getting back the full array from the backend. So for now, we're just going to say console.log data. I'm pretty sure everything's going to work, but just want to play it safe. Now, the next thing that we have to do here is pass in our remove item function into our menu item card component, because that is where the delete button is living. So now we're going to say remove item. And then if I save this, now I can go to the menu item card, and here's where I can say on click. Then we can say props dot remove item. And this is where I can now say, to pass in the ID, I'm just going to say props.item.id. And I'm going to save this. Cool. All right, so I think we restarted our backend already. So let's just go ahead and see what happens if I hit delete on hamburger 3. So now we should have inside the console. It looks like we've got a couple arrays back here. Let's see. So let's go ahead and make this a little bit readable. I'm going to clear all these out, and I'm going to refresh the page. Close this. Open it again. All right, so we're getting a whole bunch. Oh, I'm not sure why we're getting so many of these arrays back. It's coming from menu edit, item edit display. It has to be related with something. Let's try this. If I save that, hit console, clear that. Okay. So if we reload the page, inspect, yes, it is related to our buttons here. So are we actually target? Okay, cool. So the thing that we're looking for in the back here is item is present. So we are getting that confirmation here in the back end, which is great. So let's go ahead and complete this method and actually set it up properly here. So now instead of system.out, if the item is present, which it is, we're going to say menu item repository.delete, and we're going to say remove item.get. So that way it can compare the object that it found with the object in the repository, and if both of those match, it's going to erase it. Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to restart my backend. I'm going to move that off to the side. And here back on the front end, I'm going to close this out. I'm going to bring this back. So now if I hit save here, our items are back. If I reload the page, it appears they were all deleted, which that is not cool. So I got to figure that out. I'll get back to you. So I realized where I messed up. Since the on-click is set up this way, it's just automatically running. The proper way to set it up was to do it this way. Now it wasn't going to trigger every time. So I'm going to go ahead and recreate all these items and verify that this is going to work now. But now that I've changed my on-click this way, next time I load the page, whenever I do have all my items back, they shouldn't be deleted unless I tell them to delete. So let's go ahead and make sure that happens. All right, so just re-added all my items, reloading the page, and we can see that the items are still there. Menu item is all set up properly. So now I want to delete this hamburger 12. Should be deleted if I refresh. All right, it worked. However, we did not change state right away. So let's go ahead and make sure that that's working properly. If I go back to menu edit item, now I can go ahead and change this here to props dot set. Oh, what did I name that? Set menu items. And if I save this, now if I were to delete hamburger 13, there we go. It updates immediately. So now we have a working delete button. We can create an item. And then this one, let's just go ahead and make tacos. Delicious tacos. This is going to be a lunch. And we're going to sell this one by one. So we're going to sell these for $3.33 and submit. Okay, now we got tacos. Awesome. So looks like everything is working fine now. And the next step that we're going to do is going to be updating an item. So if I want to change my hamburger description, I can do so. Or if I wanted to change my breakfast plate description, category, price, if it's new or if it's not new, I'll be able to do all of that. So that is what we'll be working on now. All right, so the first thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to hop over into menu item card, and we are going to be making a new button. And this one is going to be a button for on click. We're just going to leave this pretty basic for the moment. We'll say, make sure we use our arrow function here, and we'll just say console.log update. And then we're going to say class name. Let's go ahead and make our button right now. We're going to say background green. And we're going to say 500 with an opacity of 80. And this is going to look pretty much exactly like our other button. Margin top 2 with a padding of 2. And we're going to have a rounded edge. Okay. And then here we're just going to say update item, and we'll save that. So now you can see we have our update item button right here. And we can actually go ahead and also say, let's just leave it like that actually. So if I hit update item, we should have something in our console. Yep, so it says update, which is what we have right here. If I hit it again, we'll get another update. So now the next step is going to be setting up how we're going to change our state and have the form pre-filled, and then be able to make a call to the back to actually modify the object in the database itself. The first thing that I want to do is I want to go back to our menu item form, because what we're going to do is we're just going to borrow our form from our other component here. We're going to copy that, and then we're going to go ahead and move this. Let's go ahead and say, for now, we're just going to kind of store it up here. Control V. So obviously handle submit's not going to work here, but for the meantime, we're going to go ahead and create a function up here for it, just to let the compiler relax. There's going to be an event, and we're going to say type any arrow function, and there we go. So if I save that, now we can see that our form has been rendered here. And the thing that I want to set up here is I want to make it to where if I click update item, only the form is going to become visible on the card. And then if I click update item again, it will switch back over to the item itself. So in order to do that, I'm going to be utilizing state here. So I'm going to say const, then we're going to say menu, set menu. This is going to equal use state. And then it imported it for us, which I appreciate. Then we'll use that right there. And we're going to go ahead and use this as a Boolean, so we can actually set this up as a type as Boolean. Okay. And then we'll have this set to false. And now if I save this, all right. So inside our return statement here, I'm going to set up a menu, and we're going to do a ternary here. And then if I were to just hit delete, now we have form, and then we have that. We're not going to do this on div, but we are going to about right here. And then where's form? Okay. Oops. All right. And then now this is going to have to be wrapped in a div. Here we go. All right, so let's go ahead and kind of clean our code up here just a little bit. All right, so now we have our card that's going to be able to show properly. So if I hit save here, okay, cool. Now we can only see our item. So what I'm going to do now is instead of our onClick doing console log update, what we're going to do is we're going to say set menu, and then whatever the previous value was, we're going to say previous. So now this is going to enable us to switch from false over to true. And then if it were true, it would switch over to false. So 1 or 0. So now that I save this, I should be able to hit update item. There we go. Now I don't have a way to cancel this at this moment in time, but if I were to set it up like so, I would set it up like this. I would just say button. And this is pretty much going to be the exact same thing. We'll say class name. We're going to say background red. And we're going to say 500 with an 80 opacity, a padding of 2, rounded medium. Okay. And then we'll say on click. This is going to be a function. That's going to be set menu over from the previous value, like so. Okay. And then now we're just going to say cancel. And if I save that, now I have the option to cancel it. And if I hit cancel, now we can switch back and forth. So fantastic. Now my next step here is I want to give myself some default values in this field from the previous stats of the item beforehand. And that's so that way if I don't want to change anything else, I just want to change like the category, I can target just one and submit it, and then we'll be able to update our backend. So the first thing I want to do here is I want to come up to name, and then we're just going to say default value, and this is going to equal props.item.name. And just to make sure this is working, here we go. So yep, this is pizza. If I were to click hamburger, we have hamburger. So now we can just repeat this process everywhere else. I'll speed it up just so that way you don't have to. All right. So the only one that's not quite working the way I want it to at this moment is our isNew. So for now, we're not going to worry about it, but instead what we're going to focus on now is if we were to go and look at any of our items, everything updates properly, which is great. Aside from our checkbox, which we'll figure out later on. The next step that we are going to focus on is actually making our put call to the backend to update the item itself. In order to make our update to the backend, we're going to have a method to handle our update in the backend. So if I go ahead and bring out our Spring Boot here, you can see everything is running. And what we're going to need to do now is create a put mapping. So if I go under my delete mapping and then I say put mapping, we can go ahead and set this value as update item since we are updating it. And we're going to go ahead and take in a path variable. We're going to take the ID of the item, because what I want to do here is we're going to say public response entity, and then we're going to name this function update item. And inside our parameters here, we're going to say at path variable, and then the ID here we're going to say is long, and our request body is going to become a menu item DTO. Nice. Okay. And then just like every other return statement that we've done inside of our controller here, we're going to go ahead and say new response entity. And then this is going to be menu item repository.findAll, HTTP status.OK. All right. So we are still ultimately going to be sending back the full updated list of items back to the front. But inside here, now we have to start writing out what is how we're going to be handling that data that's going to be being sent to the back. So we have our menu item itself with all its properties, but it's also going to be coming with an ID. So the first thing that we need to do, and we're going to utilize optional here, is we're going to say optional menu item entity, because what if we sent something back with an ID that didn't exist in our database? That could cause some errors. So what we're going to do now is we're going to say optional update menu item, which is going to equal our menu item repository dot find by ID, and here's where we're using our path variable ID. Okay, so if we do find our item in the back, we're gonna go ahead and create a conditional here, because we're gonna say if update menu item dot is present. So if that item does exist, then what we want to do is update the item itself. So here's where we're going to say update menu item dot get from the optional, and then we're going to say set name, and then inside here we're going to say menu item DTO dot get name, and then this formula here is going to be pretty much the same on the rest of the fields. So I'm going to go ahead and fill those out a little sped up. Okay, so then this is our updated item here. So now we can say menu item repository dot save, and here we can say update menu item dot get. All right, so pretty much we find our item, and then we're modifying our item here because it has all these fields predefined from its first entry. And we're resetting the name, resetting the category, description, etc. And now this should be good to go. So if I were to restart my backend here, I'm going to go ahead and get this out of the way, because now what I'm working on is we want to set this handle submit. We want to get this set up to where it's going to be making a call to the backend, making a request. So first thing, event dot prevent default, and then here's where we're going to say const. We're going to make this data because we're going to be sending it out. And then here's where we're going to use these again. We're going to say string, and this is going to be event dot target dot name dot value. And I'm going to go ahead and speed through this real quick too. All right, so now we filled out our form, or we filled out our object here, which is going to be our menu item DTO. So now here's where we're going to say fetch, And I never set up my web URL in here, so let's go ahead and do that. All right. So now inside fetch, we're going to say web URL plus, so this is going to be /admin for our controller, then /update item for the method. And now we got to tack on our item. So we're going to say event.target.id.value. All right. And here I'm going to throw in some headers. We're going to say method put headers. You're going to open up an object. /JSON. And then here we're putting in the body, and this is going to be JSON.stringify. And then here's where we're going to get that data and stringify it, put it inside. Cool. All right. So now we can say .then, and then here's where we can say response. It's going to be response.json, and followed by another .then, which is going to be data. Oop. Actually, I don't want to put that there. We want to put that down here. All right. Once we send back our data, it's going to be returning that array. So let's make sure menu item card. Let's see, menu item card does not look like it is receiving that. So we need to pass in set menu items, which is going to equal props.set menu items. All right, so here's where I'm going to save that. So now we should have access to our props here. Oop, yep, props.set menu items, which is going to be data. All right, so first, let's just make sure that this works. So I'm going to save this. So the first thing we're going to check is we're going to update our item here, pizza, and we're going to change it to lunch. So if I hit submit, all right, so here we go. We do have an error. Props.item menu items.map is not a function. So give me 2 seconds to figure out what's happening here. Okay, so the issue that we're coming across at this moment in time is if I leave event.target.id.value as so, it's going to return undefined. So what we have to do is we have to change it to props.item.id because we're using the item's ID. So if I save this, and then I go over here to pizza, and then we update it, and then we just change it to cheese pizza, this should work. So if I hit cancel, now it's reflecting as cheese pizza. And I was doing some testing and I noticed that category was coming back undefined. And the reason is if I look at my spelling here, you might have caught this whenever I was typing it up. So if I actually say value, save it, and then I go to update the item, and then we change it to lunch like we were trying to, now it's reflecting as lunch. So things appear to be working properly. So the only things that I want to do before we go ahead and say this looks good is I want to change our, we want to change this to be, after we hit update item, we want to change it back to the normal menu. So if I go to set menu and then I just say previous is arrow function, opposite of the first previous, and then I hit save. So now if I go here to update our pizza, and then let's just change it to, we're going to change it to super cheese pizza. I submit, and now it reflects immediately, and it goes back to the way, back to the card display. So before we move on to actually creating the menu with the menu items we've created themselves, I think it's important to go back and update the code to make sure that our types are correct And if we can figure out how to get the isNew boolean to reflect properly, we're going to do that as well. So let's go ahead and run back through the code and get this set up to look nice and clean. All right, so one of the only places that I've noticed we need to update our typing is we just need to take our interface here from page, go to menu item edit display, go ahead and bring that into here. And we know that data, whenever it's being returned, we know that this is going to be a menu item or an array of menu items. So inside here, we can actually say menu item array, and then that should be set up properly there. And down here where we just had item any, we can actually say menu item because that's what all these items are. And then I think as far as menu item edit display goes, I think this is all we really needed to be worried about. So if I go back here to menu item form, we can actually do that casting that we did here, or that typing. We can set our type with data like so, and we can do that here as well. However, as you notice in here, the reason it's upset is because we actually need to bring in the interface. There we are. So that should be just fine now. So if I save that here, and then we hop back over to menu item card, we can actually do the same thing here for data. Just go ahead and copy this. We'll say that. Then we just need to bring him back into the interface. Save that. And then I think as far as our typecasting is concerned, at this point in time, I think I'm satisfied with it. Let's just make sure everything is working. We're going to change this back to dinner. We're going to change the price to $19.99. And now this is a new item. If I hit submit, true, $19.99, and it's dinner. Okay, so that appears to be working. If I refresh the page, let's go ahead and create a new item. This one here is going to be a cup of coffee. This is a delicious light roast. And now we're going to change this to drinks, and then we're going to say this is a $2.99 cup. If we hit submit, there it is. It showed up. Beautiful. So everything appears to be working just fine. We'll go ahead and worry about the checkbox another time if we even bother coming back to it. And let's go ahead and start setting it up to where we can take our items and actually build a menu with the items that we've created. So we have all our item cards. We can see all our items. We can create a new item whenever we want. We can delete or modify the item. So the next step now is to produce a menu, to create a menu. So the way that we're going to do that is on this row here, we're going to add in two more sections here. One of them is going to be where we are actually creating the new menu, adding the items to that menu list. The other display is going to be showing the items that we have added to the list. So the first step is going to be jumping over here. We're going to be creating a new file. We will be creating a create new menu.tsx. Okay. Export default function. Create new menu. All right. So now we have our new menu created here. And the location that we're going to place this, I'm going to go ahead and close these out for now. The one final thing I wanted to do down here in menu card was say update. Whenever we are looking at our update option, and now it's going to say update new item instead of create. So we can close that out. Okay, so now we are here inside page, and I'm going to go ahead and we're going to call this is going to be create new menu item. We're going to save that. Okay, we can see that showing up down there. So now we can say flex. If I save that, here we go. Yep, and you can see Well, we'll see how this is going to turn out whenever we start populating our component. We might have to just kind of throw these into various columns, but let's go ahead and move forward from here. Now that we got this, we can go ahead and jump back here into create new menu. And the first thing I want to do inside of here is we're going to need to create another form because we're going to be submitting this menu to the back end. And let's go ahead and create the user interface here. And then after that, we can kind of start building our classes around that idea. So here we're going to say form, and then on submit, handle submit. And then just to keep it a little happy, we're going to say handle submit, which is equal to okay, we got that now. Cool. Let's go ahead and close out our form. All right. So this is going to be called, this is an H1 here for create new menu. I'm going to hit save. There we go. And we're going to break this up into two separate divs, because we want our form to be inside one div, and then we're going to have another div to display what the form or what the menu currently has inside of it. So this is going to be another div, and this is going to be display new menu contents while creating. Okay, and then that'll mean inside here we're going to say class name. This is going to be flex. Here we go. And then for to make this a little bit easier to read and understand, we're just going to say class name, background. We're going to say gray, and then we're going to say 200. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, kind of hard to tell, so let's go ahead and say 300. Save that. Okay. So now let's go ahead and go into here. Right now we're just kind of setting up our space. So this is going to be background. This is going to be gray 400. There we go. So now we can go ahead and head back over here into page. And inside menu item form, so let's go ahead and go over there real fast. And at the top of this return, we're going to say background gray. I think this one was 400. Yep, there we go. Nice. Okay, and then let's go ahead and just give this a margin of, 2. And we're going to give this a padding of 3. All right. Looks a little better. Okay. And then just because I like it, we're just going to say rounded medium. All right. So now we got our create menu item, create new item. We'll just say create new menu item. All right. Nice. So back here inside create menu, we're going to go ahead and do the same. We're going to go ahead and give it a margin of 2 and padding of 3. Oops. Actually, I take that back. We're not going to be putting it there. We're going to be putting it down inside of our child divs here. There we go. So now they're a little spread out. And we can say rounded medium. All right. So now our display, the way this is displayed is a little bit more uniform. Okay, so now we can go ahead and start working on our form here. First thing that we're going to need inside here, it's going to be inside of a div. This one's going to be for H1. And this is new menu name. And here we're going to say input, type text. And this one's going to have an ID of name. This is going to be required. And we're going to save it. Okay, nice. Let's go ahead and give ourselves just a little bit of restrictions in here. We're going to say minimum length is going to be 3, while a maximum length is going to be 30. So I save that, so now that has to be filled in. Cool. All right, so let's go ahead and work on our next div here. And inside this one, this is going to be where we're adding the item. So let's go ahead and mark it. We're going to say h1, add items, save that. Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and give this a little bit of a margin top so that way it can breathe a little bit. We're just going to say 2. Let's see how that looks. Let's go 4. Yeah, that looks better. Okay. Okay, and then down here, let's go ahead and set up our select element. And then this one can have multiple selections. So this will be multiple is equal to true. And the value of our select here is going to be based off of multiple values. So we're going to say value is equal to, and then we're going to say selected values, and we're going to define that here right after we say, we're going to say ID, and we're going to say ID is add item. And then we're going to go ahead and close this out for just a second. There's something else we're missing inside of our select, but I want to do this one at a time. So selected values is going to be an array that's going to hold all the values that we select inside of our select box here. So first we're going to go up here. We're going to say const. I'm going to say selected values. And this is going to equal an array. Is it upset because we don't have a type? Yep. So here for the moment we're just going to say any, but we are going to be just housing a bunch of menu items inside here. And the next step now is we're going to need to have an on change for this one that's going to handle these selections. So we're going to go ahead and say on change. And this is going to be called handle selections. We'll just say handle selection. Okay, so now we have 2 methods up here that we're going to need to define. This one's going to be handle selection. All right, cool. So inside of our select, we need to have the options that someone can select from. And this one here is going to be menu items. But we need to pass in menu items, and we're just going to map through it, and we're going to do it like so. We're going to say menu items is equal to, well, we'll set it up like this for the moment. All right, so now we need to work on our menu items, but first we need to get these menu items passed over to us. So let's go ahead and pass in some props. We're going to say menu items equal to menu items. We go into here and then we say props any. All right, I'm going to save this here. And now we can go ahead and define and say menu items is going to be equal to props.menu items dot map. But we can map through our items, but one thing I think is going to be important, and let's go ahead and actually define map first, and then we'll address what I'm going to bring up here. First, we got to define our item, so we're going to say item, which is any. We're going to go ahead and assign that a little bit later, and here is where we're going to say return option key, which is going to be item.id, and the value is going to be item.name. And what we're going to display whenever someone is actually looking through the scroll is they're going to say item.name. Okay. So let's see if this worked. We might have to rewrite that map. Okay, there we go. Cool. So we can see here all the items have now shown up. They're not in alphabetical order, which kind of makes this a little chaotic to organize through. So the way that I want to handle that is we're going to use a sort. And inside of our sort, we're going to say function. And it's going to be A and B. And now we get to define, okay, let's see. First we're going to have to say, we're going to have to cast it, or we're going to have to say the type here. We're just going to say any for now. All right. We're going to have an A and B value. So if A.name is less than B.name, we'll say return -1. And if A.name is greater than B.name, we'll say return 1. Just because I haven't been using semicolons, we're not going to change the convention. And then at the end, we're just going to say return 0. So, all right, now that this function is defined, if we save this, our add items is now in alphabetical order. Now, the one thing as a consequence, it did organize our menu items here, but it also changed our menu cards to be displayed in that order. However, I want these to be displayed in order based on ID. So let's just quickly go back and fix that up real fast. We're going to go ahead and head back over to menu item edit display. And inside here, we're going to say .sort. I'm going to say A and B. Okay. We got to do our types here. And then inside of our function, we're going to say return, don't butcher the spelling, return A.id through B.id. And if I save this, there we go. So now our item cards are going to be displayed based on ID, whereas our item list that we have inside of our create new menu is going to be based on alphabet. All right. Back to create new menu. So now we have these items. So inside of our form, what we're going to have to do next is create a submit. So down here underneath our div, this is where we can go ahead and say button type submit. And we can save that. And like before, let's go ahead and just say class name. This is going to be background is going to be green 500. And then I always give it just a little bit of opacity just so that way it kind of lowers the intensity of that color. Background green, padding 2, margin 2, and then a rounded medium. All right. So now whenever I go to submit this, let's go ahead and do, so this is handle submit. So if I were to say, oh, actually this is an event. So we need to say event, and then event dot console.log. So here we can say event.target.name.value. I can hit copy. Then I can just say the exact same thing, but for add item. And now we actually need to work on our handle selection for our select multiple here. So inside of our handle selection, we're going to say event any. Event.prevent default. And then if event that target that value does not equal an empty string, we need to use state here. So we're going to go up top and we're going to say const update menu. Oops. Well, actually, we need to do this inside the brackets. And then set update menu, which is going to equal use state. And then this here is going to be an array of strings. So we'll say that. Nice. Okay. And inside here, we're going to just initialize it with an empty array. Now inside our handle selection, we're going to say set update menu. And inside here, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking a string. We're going to use the spread operator. We're going to say whatever update menu is, we're going to add event target value. Anytime we select item from our add item menu here, it's going to, the string, just the name is going to be added to our update menu array that is being changed via state. Before this yells at me, let's go ahead and just say use client. Okay, awesome. So now let's go ahead and save it here. All right, cool. So now the next step is to make sure that whenever we are adding an item, it is going to be displaying so that way we can see what we're adding before we submit anything to be saved to the back end. So in order for us to see what we're actually putting into our menu to be displayed, let's go ahead and go down here and let's actually make a new variable. This one's going to be const items currently being added, which is going to equal props dot menu items dot map, which is going to be item. For now, we're going to say any. Okay. And here we're going to just be saying return. And before we go too much further, let's go ahead and kind of adjust this a little bit here. Inside this div, what we're going to be showing is an ordered list. So let's go ahead and make those tags. Ordered list. And we'll close it out. Excellent. And then now inside here, we're just going to go ahead and say items currently being added. Awesome. All right. So now let's go ahead and define what our list objects or our list elements are going to look like. So we're going to say list, and then they're going to have a key. And the key in this case is going to be, since there's no ID, we're just going to say item. And inside here, we're just going to go ahead and say quotes, then plus item. Okay. So let's see if this is going to look how we think it's going to look. If I save this. All right, so if I reload. Okay, currently there's just a lot of objects being sent in by default. So let's make sure we figure out what's going on here. Okay, I see the issue. All right, whoops, I got a little mixed up here. So all this is supposed to be is menu item. Oop. If we save that, this should be this menu items up here. No, it's update menu. My goodness, I'm so sorry. Okay. All right. Let's just make sure that that's going to still show up. We're going to say H1 items currently on the list. Okay, nice. So if I were to click breakfast plate, there we go. So now I can select various items, and these are the items that are currently on our list, and that's the list update menu, which is our state up here. And we're going to have to find all these items a little bit later, but let's go ahead and take a look here, because I want to be able to clear out the list. So the way that I want to write this out is underneath our ordered list here, I'm going to go ahead and say update menu dot length. If it does not equal 0, and then this is pretty much just conditional rendering here. So if we say button, we'll say class name, background red, 580, padding of 2, rounded medium, margin top of 3. Actually, we don't need that. And then now we can say on click. On click. Now we can say arrow function. We'll say set update menu to be an empty array. And now we can name this clear list. So here we go. Oh yeah, we do want that margin top of 3. Okay. So if I wanted to, I can clear this list and start over. So I can click any of these items, clear this list. But if the list does not exist, so in this case, update menu.length is equal to 0, then it won't run to the button. However, now it does. Cool. Now what we have left to do is to actually create the menu in the back. In order to do that, we're going to be working on our handle submit up here. But we also have to go back and define some new classes, and we also have to define some new methods. So let's go ahead and work on that now. Before we start working on the back end, I want to kind of set the stage a bit. So what we need to do first is we need to create a menu entity class, and this class is going to hold the name of the current menu, the time whenever the current menu is going to be made, and all the items that are going to live inside that menu. And then once we have that created, then we're going to need to set up in our controller a way to create and store a new menu entity item. And then once we're completed with that, the final thing we're going to do is be able to view the last menu saved. We are also going to want to view other menus that we've made before, as well as delete menus. So if we're going to be deleting menus, one thing that we need to consider as well is we can't necessarily save the menu item entity itself in an array with our menu entity class, because if we do, we are going to run into foreign key errors. So let's go ahead and get started here. I'm going to bring my backend here to the front. So now we're inside of our menu admin controller. Let's go ahead and create a new model. And inside this model, this one is going to be called menu entity. All right. And inside here, what we're going to do is we're going to create an ID. And this one's going to have the annotation ID as well as generated value, strategy, generation type ID. Okay. We're also going to need to create the date that the object is saved. And for now, we're just going to use the date utility from Java itself. We're going to name this last updated. And then we're going to need to have a list. We could save the menu item entities themselves. However, if we try to delete one of those items, but they exist on a menu, we're going to get foreign key errors. So instead, the way I'm going to work around that is I'm going to say menu item IDs, and we're just going to reference the IDs from inside of our menu item IDs list here. And then let's go ahead and also fix this real quick. I didn't realize that was there. Refactor. Yep. Okay, cool. All right. So I think these are all the fields that we're going to need inside of our menu entity. Let's go ahead and generate constructor. Okay. Ooh, there's one thing I almost missed here. I wanted to also have a string for the name of the menu itself. Let's go ahead and bring that into here as well. Okay. And then this one we're going to make a no-args constructor just in case. And then down here we're going to generate our getters and setters. And then we're going to delete the setter for the ID. All right, cool. So I believe that takes care of our menu entity class. Let's go ahead and move over into our controller. So inside here, now we have to think about whenever we go to save a new menu, where are we going to save it? How are we going to save it? We're going to need to create a new post mapping in here. So the way we're going to handle that is we're going to scroll down, and then let's just go ahead and say this is going to be our menu creation mappings. Okay, so now we're going to say post. And this one we're going to call create menu. And this is going to be a public with a response entity of create new menu. And then at request body. So inside here, we're going to need to create a menu DTO. And that class doesn't exist yet. So let's go ahead and set that up. Let's go ahead and get this going. HTTP status dot OK. All right, let's go ahead and create our menu DTO. Okay, so inside here, let's go ahead and just say all args constructor, and then we're going to just use getters. So these are the only things we need inside here, I believe, aside from, of course, private string name, and then private, and then a list of string items. We're going to import list. Wonderful. Okay, let's go back to our controller, and then we'll have to import this. Awesome. So now let's go ahead and think about this here. What we're going to need to do is we are going to be creating a list of IDs, and those are, we've already decided those are going to be saved as the type long. So we're going to set that up. We're going to say menu item IDs, which is equal to new array list. Here, after we create our list here, what we're going to want to do is inside of our menu DTO, we're going to have a list of strings, and this list of strings is going to have the names of each of the items that we want to add to this menu. So the first thing I want to do here is create a for loop. I'm going to say string item menu DTO dot get items. Okay, so now we're iterating through all these strings, and there's something I'm going to need here, because if I'm going to be searching by name, now I need to go to the menu item repository, and I'm going to have to specify inside here, I'm going to have to say optional. This is going to be menu item entity. And then we're going to have to say find by name. And this is going to take an input of string with name. And then we're going to have to import optional here. Okay. All right. So now we have this set up. So now we can search the repository by an item's name. Let's go ahead and go back to our controller here. Cool. So now we have our for loop. Let's go ahead and say optional, because just in case this item doesn't exist, we're going to say menu item entity. And then we're just going to ask if the item is present, because if the item is present, then we can get the ID, and then we can save the ID to this new array list of IDs. So now we're going to say menu item repository dot find by name, and we're going to say item, which is this right here. Save that. Okay. So if we find the menu item by its name, then it's going to be set inside of item present. So if item present dot is present, so if it's there, then we're just going to say menu items ID dot add item present dot get ID. Okay, so now we're collecting our menu item IDs and storing them into their own array. So that means now we can create and instantiate a new menu entity, which is going to equal new menu entity, and menu DTO.get name. And then we're going to say new date object, since that's what's needed next. And then we can set menu item IDs. And then now we've created our new menu entity. And what we're going to do now is we're just going to save it. But in order for us to save it, we actually need to have a repository for it first. So let's go ahead and say new Java class, menu repository. This will be an interface. And then we're going to say extends JPA repository. And this is going to take in a menu entity and a long ID. All right. That should be all we need here. So let's go ahead and go back to this. We're going to say, oh, we need to auto wire this in now. Okay. So we'll go back to the top here. We're going to auto wire this in. Okay, we got our menu entity. Oh, actually we need to menu repository. Menu repository, okay. And we'll go right back down to our method. And now, menu repository dot save. And this is going to be a new menu entity. All right. And then once this is created, now what we're going to do is inside of our response entity returning, what we want to do is we want to return the menu repository dot find all dot get, and we want to return a specific menu. We don't want to return all of them here. We just want to return a specific one because it's the most recent one we created. We're going to say get, and we're going to say menu repository dot find all dot size, and then -1. So that way it's going to give us the most recent entry we just submitted. Excellent. So now we have it set up here on our controller. Let's go ahead and save this back here, because we're going to be doing some checking here in a moment to make sure that, because we just modified a whole bunch of code and it's already giving us errors. Let's see what it's saying. Okay. So this error here is just simply letting us know that I forgot to say at entity. Okay, so now if we try to run this again, looks like everything is working. Excellent. Okay, so now we've just modified a whole bunch of code. Let's go ahead and go back to the front end and make sure that our new post mapping route is working. All right, so now we're back here in the front, and now it's time for us to handle our handle submit function here. One of the first things I want to do is const. I'm going to fast forward here. All right, we got our string set up there. Let's go ahead and remove these. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and change our handle submit to an async function. And inside here, we're going to say const data, because this is what we're going to be sending to the back. Then we're going to say name, string, event.target.name.value. All right, and then this is where we're sending back our array of strings that contains all the items we want to add. So here we're just going to say update menu, because that's what has all of that information. Excellent. Oops. All right, so now let's go ahead and do the fetch. We'll say await fetch, which is going to be web URL plus admin/create menu, since that was the route. Then let's go ahead and say our method is going to be post. Our headers are going to be content type, application/JSON, and then the body of our message is going to have a stringify of our data. All right, then we're going to say .then, which is going to have our response. It's going to be response.json, followed by .then data, which let's go ahead and console.log our data to make sure everything is coming back up here to the front. So if I save this, okay, our backend is running. Let's go ahead and try this out. We're going to create new menu. We're going to just go ahead and add in these all these items, and we do have a duplicate in here. We have not tried to handle this yet, but let's go ahead and submit this and see what happens. If I go and inspect inside console, looks like we do get an object back. However, we do have some error here. Okay, and it's just saying that we had encountered two children with the same key. So we don't need to worry about that at this moment in time. We're going to check here, and it looks like we have created a new object with these 5 IDs, and we can go ahead and look. We can look for 16. We can look for 14, 16, 14, 16, 17, 17, and 19, which that corresponds with everything we see right here. Wonderful. And then if I went ahead and did another one, then I cleared this list. Let's not put duplicates in this time. All right, submit. Look at that. Okay, cool. So our post is working. We're saving it to our repository. And let's go ahead and just take a look quickly here and check our boot run. Yep, we're not seeing any errors, so we're doing good. Awesome. So fantastic. We are now saving items to the back. So I think the next step that we should work on here is going to be able to see the display of the current menu that we just saved. So let's go ahead and work on that. Let's create a new component. We're going to call this file display menu.tsx. Okay. Export default function display menu. And we're probably going to need props in here later on, but for now, all right, we got that set up. Let's see. Let's go ahead and just put some, let's just put a little something in here first. Actually, let's just go ahead and do this. Say div. All right, here we're just going to say h1. Then this is going to be current menu. And then here we're going to need to say current menu name. And then we need to go ahead and also see when the date was. So we'll say h1 menu created. Then this is going to be last time menu was updated. Cool. So if I save this, now we need to go over to page. And here's where we set this up earlier. Now all we have to do is just say display. What if I spelled display right? Display menu. All right, if I save this, here we go. Now we got that showing up. And inside here, let's just go ahead and help with what we've kind of been doing. We're going to say background gray. This is going to be 100 with a padding of 4. Okay, there we go. Now we can see that a little clearly. Let's go ahead and just do some quick modifications up here. We're going to say class name. We're going to say font, light. And then we're going to say text. I'll say 2XL. Save that. And then text center. Okay, just those little touches of styling. And then we're just going to go ahead and say margin Y. Change that to 5. Here we go. All right, that looks a little better. Cool. And then also while we're in here, let's just go ahead and do this as well. We're going to say class name, then we're going to say margin bottom, and then we're going to go ahead and say 3. And then if we save that, okay, now there's a little bit of breathing room. Cool. All right, so let's go ahead and go back into the display menu because now we have some work to do inside here. What we want to get set up is under here, we need to have display the menu items of the menu. Okay, save that. So in order to pull this information, we're going to need to have a get call inside of our display menu. So in order to do that, just like always, we're going to need to use client. And then we're also going to need to import use state from React. Okay. And we're also going to need use effect. And then let's just go ahead and get this out of the way a little bit early on. I'm just going to copy and paste it this time. Okay. Got our backend URL. Now let's go ahead and set up some state real fast. What we're going to do here, what we're going to do inside here now is we're going to go ahead and create a new state variable. We're going to say all menus, set all menus, which is going to equal use state any array. Then we'll initialize this with an empty array. All right, so now let's go ahead and use effect. Inside here, we'll go ahead and call function. And now let's go ahead and get the menu. So before we do that, we need to actually get these menus from the back end. So let's quickly bring our back end back up here to the front. All right. And let's actually go ahead and retrieve our menu. So let's go ahead and above our post mapping, we're going to say get mapping. And here we're going to set this route as get menus. And we're going to say public response entity. And we're going to say get menus Cool. We're going to do return new response entity, just like always. We're going to do menu repository dot find all, and then http status dot OK. All right, so this should be set up just fine. I'm going to restart this backend. And then let's go ahead and actually make sure that it works. So let's go ahead and do all right, so now get menu equals, and we're going to have this as an async function. Cool. Now I'm going to say await fetch. We're going to use that web URL that we brought in. And then we'll say /admin/ get menus dot then, and we're going to wait for the response. Okay, response dot JSON, and then we're going to say dot then data is equal to, or arrow function to, and then we can do set all menus data. And I think this is going to work, but let's just also go ahead and do console.log, and we're going to say data. Cool. Okay, now we just need to call the function. So get menu. All right, I'm going to save this. And let's go ahead and check out what our console.log did. Ooh, that's not good, right? Look at that. I know what's going on. We forgot to do something with our call here. So I'm going to save this. Okay, now we should just have one menu, not a million. There we go. And then look at that. We have both of our menus that we created earlier that we have now set in state. So we can go ahead and get rid of this console log. Go ahead and close this out. Awesome. So now we have this all menus. So if we're going to need the menu items inside here, we're going to need to set this up as a props with any. And then if we go back to our main page here, let's go ahead and pass in our menu items. All right, so those should now be passed in. If we go back to our display menu here, now we have props. Excellent. And we can just access those whenever we want in here now. Awesome. So if I save here, all right. Okay, so the way that I want to handle actually displaying our items is I'm going to go ahead and create another component, and we should be getting close to, this should be one of our final components if it's not the final. So this component, we're going to go to new name, display menu items.tsx. Okay. Export default function, display menu items. Okay, so now we have that brought in. And actually, if I go ahead and go back to our display menu items is going to have to take in two props. So if I go ahead and prepare that already over here, now all we have to do is I can say display menu items. Just close that out. And then we're going to call this menu items, which is equal to props.menu items. And then the next one is the current menu. And then to get the current menu, what we're going to do is I'm going to say all menus. All right, got all menus. We're going to add in all menus here, but we just want to send the most recent menu that is being called. So what we're going to say is all menus, and then for the position, we're going to say all menus dot length -1. Then this is going to return the last menu that was entered into our array. Excellent. Okay, so now those are passed in. Let's go ahead and hop over into our display menu items and get this set up. All right, so here we are, we're on display menu items. And let's actually make sure that our props is working here. We're going to say props dot current menu dot name, and if I save this, awesome, it's showing up, so it's being passed through successfully. Now the way I'm going to write this, I'm sure there's a smarter way to do this, but this is the only way that, or this is the way that I've currently worked towards getting it to work. So what we're going to do is we're going to create an ordered list for each category on our menu items. So that's going to kind of look like this. We're going to go ahead and say div. All right. And then this is the first section, and this one's going to have just our appetizers in it. So inside here, we're going to say h1 appetizers. Okay. And then now we're going to write an ordered list. And then here, we're going to use a variable called app items, but it currently doesn't exist yet. So let's go ahead and write that up here. And the way that I'm going to write this is I'm going to say const app items is equal to props dot current menu dot menu item IDs dot map. We're going to say these are menu items. Then let's just go ahead and make sure that these are working. So we're going to say console.log menu items. Save that. Okay, let's see if they show up inside here. Yes, okay. So these are menu item IDs. Awesome. So they are showing up. That's fantastic. Now what we're going to do is we're going to say if props.menu items.find, because we're looking for an item based on the ID. So if the item ID is equal to menu item IDs and it's not undefined, then what we're going to do here is we're just going to go ahead and isolate it a little further. We're going to say let category. That's what we're going to name this variable because this is based on the category of the item. We're going to say props.menu items dot find, pretty much what we have inside our if statement up here, which is going to be item any which is going to be item.id, which is equal to menu item IDs. So our variable's set. And this is just kind of for readability. I could actually throw this in here like so, but let's do this first. We're going to say return. And now I'm just going to say paragraph. And we're going to call this, we're going to call in the category, which is our result of that item. Category, its category. And if it equals appetizer, we're going to use a ternary now. What we're going to show is the category, which is our item dot name, or if we have nothing for this particular map, then we're going to say empty string. Awesome. So now if I save this, what we should see is a list of all our appetizers. So I'm going to save it. And you can see that we have wings on this current menu name, or on this current menu that we're viewing. And actually, this would really help out if we could see this menu's name. So let's go ahead and go back here into display menu. So I would like to have a current menu. So let's go ahead and make one that's going to be one that can change with state. So we're going to say const current menu, which is, this is going to equal use state. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and try this here because I wanted to start off. Oh, it's going to yell at us because it needs to be a little further down. Okay. Oop. All right, copy that. Go over here, Control V, and if I hit save, okay, it's yelling at us and it's telling us we have an error. Let's see, cannot read properties of undefined. All right, so I think I figured out what was going on here. So right now, if I actually read what it's yelling at me for, it's yelling at me at props here. And I'm guessing because we're doing so many things with state over here, it's for whatever reason, if I use this, now everything loads up. Then if I go back here to display menu, and then let's actually change this to the name that we want to see. We can say current menu.name, and if I hit save, awesome. So now we're getting to actually view another menu. And if that's the case, then I can actually also say current menu dot, oh, what is that? I actually don't remember what that's called. Let's do console.log. This might actually be a good idea for us to also create something else here. Let's see. So if I save this, after we do this, save that. Excuse me, it was working just a second ago. If I hit save. Okay, I guess now since we have another thing happening in there. Interesting. All right. So if we inspect console, what's he yelling at me for now? Okay, now we're looking at the array. This is what I want to see. And here we go. Last updated. So these are the properties of our menu here. So let's actually go ahead and set this up. We're going to make an interface for menu, which is going to equal, there is going to be an ID, which is going to be a number. Let's go ahead and get rid of this because it doesn't like that. There's going to be a last updated, which this is going to be, let's just call this a string and see how that works. We're going to say menu item IDs, and then this is going to be a number array. Okay, and then we're going to have the name, which is going to be a string. All right, so now we got our menu interface set up, and let's see if it actually fits whenever I put it here. Looks like it does. Cool. And then if I just say menu here, doesn't like null, but if I were to set that up like that, would this work is the question. Looks like it does. Excellent. So now we can go down here, current menu dot last updated. If I save this, here we go. Now we can see the time that it was updated. Awesome. So let's go ahead and go back here into our display menu items now that we kind of have something a little bit more visible. I'm going to go ahead and do class name margin top, and we're going to set this up for, we'll say 4, save that, see what it looks like. Okay, so now we got a separation, which is fantastic. Inside our appetizers, we're going to say class name. This is going to be font. We can actually just leave a normal font. We can just change the text size. We're going to go ahead and say 2XL. Save that. Maybe that's a little too large. Let's just say large. Let's do extra large. There we go. That looks better. Awesome. So we got this set up now. Cool. So the next step here is pretty much just a boatload of copy paste. At least this is the way that I'm handling it. If you know a better solution, please comment it down below, and I will certainly look into that because I'm still relatively new. I just came out of a boot camp a little while ago. But pretty much what I'm going to do now is I'm going to be copy pasting everything here. The only things I'm going to change is the variable name is going to be, the next item is going to be breakfast item. The category is going to be breakfast. And then we're just going to change appetizer to breakfast. And I think that is pretty much all we have to do from this point forward. So I'm going to go ahead and do them one by one and show you, and let's get to it. All right, cool. Looks like it did work. One thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to change this to flex. All right. And then we're going to say space X, and we're going to break this up by 3. Okay, now there's a little bit more room for them to breathe. Fantastic. And let's go ahead and I'm just going to go ahead and continue going forward here. All right, now we just got to change the variable names. All right, moment of truth. You can see our setup here. Looks like a lot, but if I save this here, looks like we have everything that we've ever wanted. Fantastic. Do we actually have a breakfast item? I don't. Yes, we do. We do have one. And it looks like we did not put that in here with this particular menu. Let's just go ahead and make sure breakfast is working. I know all of them are working, but this menu is going to be called new test menu. Then we're just going to put one of everything in here. Okay, if I hit submit, then if I reload the page, here we go. All right, so now the next steps that we're going to be working on is anytime we change our menu, we want to have it reflect. If we were to create a new menu and update it, we want it to reflect in here immediately. Additionally, we also want to be able to select other menus, and we also want to delete a menu that exists. So those are going to be the next steps that we work on, and let's go ahead and get to it. All right, so something I was thinking about was we actually need to have access to the menus from our page here, because we're going to be passing down the current menu and all menu items from our main page here. And we had to pass them down into display menu and pass them down into menu, where is that? Create new menu. So let's go ahead and move those in here real quick. If I go over to create new menu, pretty much all I'm going to do here is, we're going to need to set new menu. So let's see. So this here is going to have to change. Inside create new menu, I'm going to want to change here. We're going to just go ahead and leave a note for ourselves and say update this to reflect changes immediately. Pretty sure I spelled immediately wrong, but that's okay. Let's see. And then if I go to display menu, here we go. Now we have our get call. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy here. And this is going to break a couple stuff, but bear with me. We're going to have to do these changes. It's just going to make things a little bit easier. I'm going to go to our main menu here, and then let's go ahead and go back to, so we're going to save this. Go back here. Okay. So now we have our 2 menu objects, I think. We have set all menus and set current menu. Let's go ahead and copy those. We'll bring those down here. And one other thing we're going to need is our menu interface. And we're just going to go ahead and toss that down here. Okay, now we can save this. Awesome. All right, so we need to pass in all menus and current menu into menu display here. So let's see, we're going to need access to, because we're no longer going to need these states, I don't think. Yeah, because this is just displaying the menu here. So we're not actually going to need these states, because we're going to be changing them from the top page. All we need to add is current menu and all menu. We're not going to be doing any setting in here right now. So let's go ahead and go back. This is inside display menu. And then all we're going to pass in is all menus. Okay. And then current menu. Nice. I save this. We go back to display here. And then now all I have to do is just say props, and props. Then, oh yeah, this is going to have to be props as well. Okay, so if I save this, looks like nothing broke. I wonder if this will work. This might break something. Let's see. Nope. Okay, yeah, now that it's being passed in, it's got to be loaded up before this rendered. So there we go. Okay, so now we can remove this. Awesome, that's cleaned that up a little bit. We're going to leave this here for the moment. We might be needing our backend address here in a moment. So if we go back up here, display menu, we got all these set up. Awesome. The information is being set. I'm going to remove this console.log here. I'm going to save this. Okay, so now one of the other reasons we moved our set current menu up here to the front is because I want to take set current menu and I'm going to want to bring it here into create new menu. And the reason I want to do that, I'm going to save this. Let's go ahead and go to create new menu. And this is where we're going to be making that change that I was just mentioning. So I'm going to say props.setCurrentMenu. And then this is where I'm just going to go back here and copy paste something real fast. I can just copy this format because this is essentially the exact same call we're making. If I do this, and then I can remove those. And then if I save this, okay. All right, and then another thing that I want to do while I'm in here as well is I want to change the set update menu here as well. Once our menu's been updated, we want to clear out the selection, and here I'll show you. So let's go ahead and just say test, and then we're just going to add in 4 items. If I hit submit, okay, perfect, we're getting an error. Let's see. So this is in display menu. Props.name, that's on line 21. And then it's probably going to give us the same error here if I save this. Okay, here we go. Yep. All right, so now it's loading up. Now, let's go ahead and try that again. I'm going to do one more test. If I hit submit, all right, look at that. So we are getting some interesting errors. Now our current menu and menu created aren't loading up properly, so I wonder why that's happening. Because if I reload this, now they're going to load up. So we're getting a couple errors here. First thing is we can make sure that this clears out. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm just going to say set update menu. And then that should make this disappear, but that doesn't fix our issue that we're getting here up top. So let's go ahead and just check this again one more time. Uno más. Submit. Reload. Okay, so now that's interesting. This is not going according to plan. Let's try this again. Again. Okay, yeah, nothing is being updated immediately. So let me go ahead and check something. All right, there was one thing I forgot to consider here why this might not be working right. And It's because I probably jumped the gun back here. We should just be returning the full array, because whenever we post, we're only receiving one item. We're not receiving an array. So that might be why things aren't uploading properly. Part of the reason why I kind of set this up this way was the way that I built this earlier. It called for it to be set up this way. However, I'm kind of doing things a little bit differently on the fly, and that might be biting me in the butt. But let's see now. Okay, so if I go back to page, okay, all right. Let's go ahead and go back into here. And what we're going to do is we're just going to bring back set update menu, and then we're going to try this again. So I'm going to reload. Okay, possibly. Okay, so now we're getting the updated menu here, but we're not getting an updated, or are we? For real? Yeah, now we're not getting an updated item list here, because if I reload this, now the list is being reloaded. Okay, so let's figure this out. So how come the list is not updating immediately up here? If I go back to page, all right, so I think this might be the reason. If I change props here to props.current menu, and if I save this, all right, we're going to say 7th times the charm. There we go. Look at that. So I needed to, since I changed how my props were working, I didn't update my current menu down here, which is what display menu items rendering the information was based on. So we shouldn't need to mess with display menu items anymore, I don't think. If we go back to display menu here, everything's set up right. Awesome, cool. Now the other thing that we'd need to clear out too is the name that shows up here. And in order to do that, all I have to do is just move on down and just say event.target.name.value is equal to empty string. Now I can save that. So now whenever I go to create a new menu, this should be empty. Then we'll just go ahead and try it just to be sure. Just change this to 8th. And we're just going to put a hamburger and a cheese pizza on here. Yep. Okay. Yeah, so the name cleared out. This cleared out. Awesome. Everything is updating. It's reacting appropriately. Perfect. So let's move on to the next step. So the next part that I want to work on here is if we go back to display menu, I want to set it up to where we can view any of the menus that we've created. So I need to change what our current menu is. So in order to do that, I'm going to go to display menu here, and I'm going to go ahead and write a new div. And then inside here, we're just going to create a new form. Awesome. We're going to change this to on submit, and we're going to have a handle submit function. Now let's go ahead and just kind of write that out just a little bit. I'm going to say const handle submit event any arrow function. Okay. So let's go ahead and start populating our form here. So first what we're going to want to do is we're just going to say, oops, we're going to have an H1 to select and view other menu. If I save that, okay, now it's visible. And then underneath this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a select. And inside here for the ID, I'm going to say menu. And I'm going to go ahead and set up an onChange function here. We're going to say onChange. And then the event is going to equal a new variable that I'm going to have to create here called drop down select is equal to e.target dot value. Okay, so we got a couple things that we got to fill out here. So first things first, let's go ahead and get drop down select figured out. And all drop down select is going to be it's just going to be a string, and it's just going to be the name, so that way we can actually load up the proper menu. So up here I'm just going to say let drop down select equal, yeah, I don't even have to initialize it. Cool. So if I save this, all right, have our little drop down that has nothing in it. That way we can actually see something inside of our select up here. What I'm going to do is over here, I'm going to create a default value. And this one's just going to be called default. And then inside here, we're going to create an option with a value of default. And then we're going to make this disabled. I'm going to say select menu. And then now what I have to do is say drop down all menus, because this is where we're going to be able to see our options. So for the second, I'm going to comment this out, save this, and now you can see that we can see our default value here. Okay. Okay, so let's go ahead and work on our drop down all menus, so that way we can actually see what our options are. So up here, I'm just going to write it this way. I'm going to say const drop down all menus is equal to props.allMenus.map, and I believe that's what we have it named. Let's check that. Display menu, all menus. Yep. Okay, that should be fine. All right. AllMenus.map item any. We're going to have a return of option, which is going to be a value of item.name with a key of item.id, and the option itself is going to be item.name. And if I save this, okay. And now you can see here we have all of our menus available. At the moment, our default value doesn't seem to be working, so we're not going to worry too hard about that, not at this moment. But okay, awesome. So inside our form, we now have the ability to choose. We now have the ability to choose which menu we want to view. Okay, so let's go ahead and create our button with our button with type submit. Submit, and then because I want it to look nice, what we're going to say is class name, background red, 500, 80, padding of 2, rounded, medium, save. There it is. And you know what? Let's actually just say px for the x-axis. Yeah, that looks better. And let's actually change this to green. Okay, that looks a little better. We're going to say the margin on the x-axis is going to be, we'll give it 2 for the moment. Yeah, give it just a little breathing room. Okay. So now if I go to submit this, handle submit at this point in time isn't doing anything. So let's go ahead and get that going. Event.prevent default. Okay, so now inside here, let's go ahead and write our condition. What we're going to say is if props.allMenus.find, which is going to be menu object And if menu.name is equal to drop down select, yes, okay. Let's see, it's going to make me initialize it, right? What if I do this? There we go. I can just say it's going to be type string. Okay, so, and if it does not equal undefined, pretty much if our drop-down select has a valid menu name, and then if the name is located in the menus, if one of those menus has that name, then this should be set. But if it's not there and it is equal to undefined, then this won't trigger. Let's go ahead and do props.set current menu. And let's see, we're in display menu. Let's go ahead and check. I think I put this in here. Ooh, we did not set current menu. Let's go ahead and do that. Set current menu. All right. So now that's passed in. If we go back here, set current menu, which is going to be equal to, we can actually just copy paste this right here, because we just want to make sure that it exists first before we actually try to render anything. And if I save this, okay, so let's test it. Right now it's default setting to new menu, so if I hit submit, nothing's going to happen. If I do this, okay. Okay, so if I reload the page, 8th time is the charm, select menu. Okay, now it's actually loading up properly, cool. So now it's choosing to select menu, and then if I go to new menu, submit, awesome, now we can see it. Amazing. Now that we can actually change our menu and view whichever one we want, what if there's a couple of these I don't want and I want to delete them? So the first thing I'm going to want to do is let's go ahead and make a big old delete button. So underneath display menu items, now we're just going to have a break followed by a button. Then this one's going to have a class name with a padding of 2, background of red, since this is going to be scary delete /80, then rounded, medium, and then we're just going to go ahead and say delete current menu. Save that. All right, there's our big old button. So now we need to actually have a behavior associated with this button. So what we're going to do now is up here in the front, we're going to say onClick. And we're going to have a function in here, so arrow function. And what we want to do is we want to create a method called remove menu. And inside of it, we're going to pass in props.currentMenu.id. Cool, so let's go ahead and create our remove menu variable now. I'm going to do this up here. No, we're going to do this. Let's go ahead and do this right here. Const remove menu, which is going to equal a parameter of item ID, and this is going to be a number. Okay. So inside here, now we're going to need to make a call to the backend. If I save this, and if I click this, nothing's going to happen right now. But I'm going to need to make a delete posting here to the back. So let's go ahead and build that real fast. Here we go. Now we have our create menu back here. And I want to just do this real quick. Yeah, that does look a lot better. Okay. So our delete posting is going to be not too difficult. Delete mapping. We're going to give this a name of remove menu, and then we're going to go based on the ID of that menu. And we're going to do public response entity I'm going to say remove menu. And we're going to be taking in a path variable with a long ID. And what we're going to return is we're going to return a new response entity with the menu repository dot find all and an HTTP status of OK. So now let's actually go ahead and update this. So first we're going to say optional menu entity. Then we're going to say remove, because that's what we're doing here. So this variable is going to be menu repository dot find by ID. This is going to be based on the ID. And if remove dot is present, the menu repository dot delete remove dot get. Okay. And then we can make this into a simpler function too. Replace optional. Here we go. So this is essentially doing the exact same thing. It's just written a lot cleaner. I really appreciate IntelliJ helping me out make my methods look a lot better. All right. So if this is working, I'm going to go ahead and restart my backend, and I'm going to move this aside. And let's go ahead and finish writing our method here and test it out. So here we're just going to say fetch web URL plus slash admin slash remove menu, followed by another slash, because we are going to be including the item ID here at the end. And inside here, we're going to say method, and this is going to be a delete type. And I think that's all we have to really put here. Then we can just say dot then. And this is just going to be response, which is response.json, followed by a then, data. All right. So we'll be getting back an array of all the menus that are available. So let's see what's being passed into menu display. We have a set current menu, but we're also going to need set all menus. So let's go ahead and do that as well. So we're going to say set all menus and set all menus. Okay, going to save that. Now let's go ahead and go up here, back to display. First thing I want to do is props.set all menus. And we're just going to put the data in there. Okay. And then props.set current menu, which is going to be data. And then how did I write this? Okay, data.length -1. And I think if I save this, okay, so now I think this is all we need in order to remove a menu item. So let's go ahead and test it. We're going to reload the page, and let's go ahead and delete new menu. If I go to submit, and if I say delete current menu, okay, it updated immediately. Let's take a look. And new menu doesn't exist. What if we go to test? I hit submit. Okay, now that we're looking at the current menu test, if I delete current menu, test is now gone. Awesome. So now we have the ability to create a new menu item. We have the ability to edit that menu item. We can then use any of these items to create a new menu, and we can view all of our menus. We can save multiple menus. We can see the date, we can see the name of the menu, and we can see all the items in the menu, and we can also delete those items, or we can also delete the menu. We can't actually modify the contents of this, and this is going to be a project for another day, but In the meantime, all I really wanted to do was get this up and running, and it seems that everything is working the way we intended. So that is fantastic. All right, so we have everything built, which is great. I want to do some quick cleanup before we go ahead and call this complete for right now. The thing that I want to do is first I want to get my menu interface here and make sure that we're using it in these other components. All right, so let's see. Inside here, we need a string, so update menu, where's that? Okay. Let's see, so here from data, we're gonna be receiving a menu array, and then we're gonna need to wrap that. Okay, that's set up. Okay, let's see, update menu. Which one's this? Is this the string? Yes. Okay, so then we can say item string. All right, and I think that should take care of everything here. Awesome, I'm gonna save this. Then let's hop over to display menu where we do have our menu interface already. And here we're gonna go ahead and wrap the data again. And say menu array. Okay, nice. And then all menus, this should be the actual menu itself. So we can say menu. And then this one here, all menus, yeah, this is still going to be menu. Okay. Save this. Okay, then we hop over into here. All right, now this is the big one. Okay, now we got our menu interface here. And then let's see, menu items. So this should be a string, I think. Yep, okay. And this should be menu. Is this a number? There we go, that should be good. Let's see, menu items, so this should also be menu. Okay, if I save this, let's make sure that it's going to work. Let's go ahead and go to 8th times the charm. Actually, let's go to 7th times the charm. Yeah, it looks like it's still working. So now let's just go ahead and modify all of these. We're going to fast forward here. All right, we saved that. Okay. So I think everything's should be nice and cleaned up right now. Let's go ahead and close these out. And let's actually just go ahead and make this full screen now and do a quick demonstration. So let's go ahead and create a new dessert. We're going to create chocolate cake, and description, delicious chocolate cake. All right, this is going to be a dessert. And its price is going to be, this will be really expensive. We're going to make this $23.99. Okay, and this is new. Submit. Okay, there it is, cool. And then let's go ahead and make a cheese quesadilla. A delicious Dilla appetizer. This one's going to be $7.99. Submit. Okay. Let's go ahead and make a new menu now and show this off. This menu will be a fall menu. And we'll hit submit. Well, that's not good. I thought we had everything working. Looks like there's an error. Let's figure this out. You know what? It's probably because we are doing some casting and we did it someplace without testing it. Let's see, so that was in post. So this is in create. What if we just left that like so? Okay, there we go. So I have a feeling, okay, so if it's going to complain about how I cast it onto data, let's see, this is handle submit. So if we go to display menu, inside here, if I go to delete a menu now, was it going to break it as well? Let's see, we're going to get rid of one more test. No, it looks like that one worked just fine. Okay. So for some reason it didn't like the way we used menu inside here, but that's okay. All right, so let's try that again. So now if we go to create a new menu, let's go ahead and make a summer menu. And we're gonna go ahead and give it breakfast plate, cheeseburger, cheesecake, quesadilla. Okay, a little bit of everything. Hit submit. Still doesn't work. So post is misbehaving for some reason. We're going to try summer menu again. I'm just going to add a little bit of everything. When I hit submit, we're getting an error. Okay, and it looks like it's coming from the back end actually. Ah, here's our issue. Okay, so this is something I didn't do. I didn't do for this demo, but how we handle this error right here is we hop over to menu entity, and it's the way that we choose to store our list. To handle that, what we have to do is we have to say at column, and then we just say length, which is going to equal, we're going to go ahead and assign this 3000, just make it nice and big. Import column. And this is just us modifying our tables in the MySql database. Column definition is going to equal medium blob, not null. All right, so I'm going to save this. Okay. And then you can see we've altered our table. I'm going to go ahead and move this aside. And now I'm going to go ahead and reload the page. And this should work now. If I were to say summer menu, and then let's add everything on the list again. And this time it should save. Submit. There it goes. Beautiful. Let's actually do a couple more minor things. All right, so let's make this a little more readable up top because this is a little confusing. So let's go ahead and look at display menu. I'm gonna move this aside a little bit. And inside here, let's just go ahead and hop down into, here we go. And then I'm gonna say class name. We're gonna give it a margin top of 4 and a font. We'll leave the font normal. We'll say text XL. Save this. All right, there we go. So that's makes it make a little bit more sense. And I think that's all I really wanted to do in there. The only other thing I can think of here is to say, let's give it a margin. Oops. We're going to give this a margin on the x-axis of 2. And we're also going to round it just so that way we have the aesthetic of cards for everything. There we are. And inside our data, the one that we originally thought was the issue, but I don't think it was. I think it was the error from MySql. So we're going to say menu array. Okay, I'm going to save this. Okay, reload this. Okay, so now if I go to create a new menu, last min update, and I'm going to add everything to this menu. Okay, submit. There we go. Cool. So our typecasting was just fine here. I just wanted to verify that, and let's continue. Okay, so you can see we have all our items down here. We have our menu up here. We can choose a menu, whichever one we want. And we can also create our menu down here. So let's go ahead and first create a menu item. We are going to create chicken soup. Okay, now for the description, delicious chicken soup. And it looks like I misspelled delicious. Okay, this is going to be a lunch meal, and then this soup is going to cost $5.99 for a small. We can actually just go ahead and say small as well, and then we'll submit this. Okay, now we have a chicken soup on here. So you can see this is working. If I wanted to update an item, let's go ahead and update super cheese pizza. We're just going to change this to a supreme cheese pizza. And we're just going to go ahead and increase the price because inflation's bad. And we're going to say $30. I'm going to submit. And there we go. Supreme cheese pizza. Looks like these are submitting just fine. And then the final bit, let's go ahead and show that we can look here at other menus. I can go to possibly another menu. And let's look at fall menu. Okay, nice. So let's go ahead and just go to the default. We'll just go to testing, which was the last one we entered. Actually, I take that back. Summer menu was the last one we entered. We just had to refresh the page. Okay, so now let's go ahead and create a new menu. This menu is going to be Summer Menu 2. And it's going to have a little bit of everything. And one thing I didn't get to, we'll save this for the next video, where we don't want duplicates to be entered. So if I hit submit, okay, look at that. Everything updates just fine. So this is our early demonstration of a admin panel for a restaurant's menu item creation and menu creation. I will be doing some refactoring in the future on this particular project, but for now, I think we've built a solid foundation, and I am happy to call it here for the meantime. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully there was something of value in it for you. And this was an experiment for me to kind of show how I would build this type of app, because the process that I followed here was kind of how I built it the first time. This is the second time I built this application, but this one I did recorded from the beginning all the way to the end. This is typically my approach. I am still a very new programmer, definitely a junior. I just finished a boot camp about 2 months ago, somewhere in there, back in June. Hopefully this was entertaining. Hopefully this was informative. Thank you for checking it out.